Okay, it should be recording. Turn the brightness down so we can't see ourselves.
Good. Okay, good morning. Thank you so much all for being here this morning, very early. My name is Lucy Kate, and this is Sarah. So last night we emailed you and had you do the Enneagram test, which we're going to go over in a little bit. Then we also had some get to know you questions, which are, why are you here today? What are your after high school plans? And what is the most nervous part of thinking about life post high school? So I hope you had some good time to reflect on these things. I hope it's prepared your mind for thinking about the future today and tomorrow, and just becoming more equipped to handle the future and whatever plan may come. And then we also had you reflect on what are some of your past interview experiences. How many of you have ever participated in an interview? What did you like or dislike about it? And then if you all would not mind, turn to the partner next to you and share what you liked and disliked about that interview experience if you've had one yet. And if you haven't, don't feel self-conscious about that. You'll have plenty in years to come. But
yes, this was a way to kind of like start off what we're going to be like focusing on the next 2 days. Don't worry if you don't feel like you know anything yet, because hopefully by the end you definitely will. So anyways, okay, so they'll share with that based on their homework the night before, and then we'll kind of jump into the interview. So, all right, hopefully you had some good time to, it feels so weird to me, it's not a thing. Sorry, Dr. Parker. Anyways, I hope that you had some time to share with your partner about ways that you've either had with past experiences with interviews, or you know people who have, and we're going to work through some of those experiences and hopefully teach you in ways to have better interview experiences in the next upcoming year with colleges and the job force, etc. So just to get to know us a little bit better, my name is Sarah Margaret. I am a senior at Samford and a communications major, minoring in nonprofit management. And the reason that I'm so passionate about this is because me and Lucy both, we come from humble backgrounds up in the Northeast Georgia mountains, and the reason we're at Samford is because of our ability to interview. If it wasn't for some of the skills that we've had invested in us through our parents and teachers and things like that, we wouldn't have gotten the scholarships that we had, and therefore we wouldn't be able to be at Samford. And so a lot of our ability to interview is based on people taking the time, like we're doing right now, and investing in our interview skills and our practices and things like that. As well as doing this in the past, I've continued to see this throughout college, so unfortunately it's never going to go away. So it's also something that we've just seen as a really good investment for your future, because it's going to be something that continues to show up throughout your life and continues to be at the forefront of your jobs, and that portrays into your happiness and the things that you're doing with your career and things like that. Okay, so the ways that we've kind of seen this play out in our own lives, at least for me, and Lucy will speak to this in a little bit. I have, since being at Samford, I have received scholarships for the University Fellows Program, which is the honors school. I've also been a part of several programs with the Samford Ambassadors, and as well as working for a magazine downtown. So both of those experiences also required interview skills, which is just a way I've kind of seen that investment of taking the time to learn about this early on pay off throughout my college experience. My most embarrassing interview moment would probably be just like blanking in the middle of an interview, which, that sounds like something that is really scary, and so we're trying to work to make sure that doesn't happen with you guys, of making sure that when you come to an interview you feel totally prepared and not nervous about what they could ask you, because you feel so confident in who you are and your skills and your abilities and in the job that you're applying for, or the college or scholarship that you're applying for. So that's a little bit about me.
So the way that I've seen this specifically play out in my life is just in my involvement at Samford. I'm a part of a scholarship program that required a lot of interviewing to become a part of, which was a really good experience. And then I also am on our student executive board at Samford, which that was also a process of applying and interviewing to get to serve in that way. And then my most embarrassing interview moment is when I was leaving the interview and I said, "Okay, bye, I love you," just out of habit, because you say that to a lot of your friends and family, and I just let it slip right out in the middle of a professional interview. So I won the interview regardless, but in spite of severe embarrassment.
Hopefully that won't happen with you guys, which is our goal.
So last night, or in the past few days, you've taken the Enneagram test. And what this is a personality test that talks about what motivates you, what drives you, what your skills really are. And it also helps with learning how to relate to other people in a work environment and your personal relationships. It really kind of shows you a lot about interpersonal communication. And so this will definitely help you in a job setting whenever you get to that point, and also just in a college setting and in your relationships. So I'm just going to quickly go through the different types. Type 1 is called the reformer. That's what I am, actually. The reformer is principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and perfectionistic. They're driven by what is right and wrong, and just a desire to do good and do the right thing. Type 2, which is Sarah, is the helper. They're the caring, interpersonal type. They're generous, demonstrative, people-pleasing, and possessive. Do you know what you're driven by?
I think I'm driven by people loving me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Desire to be loved.
I think so.
Yes.
And we'll pass all of these out
Yes.
while after we kind of go through it, and I'm sure you all kind of have questions about this. We want you to kind of read through. There's a lot more information. Sorry to interrupt you,
No,
but
fine.
just to kind of, so you get to know, we're just kind of going through it,
Yes.
so you kind of get a general overview, and then we'll have you all
And
look
what
at it a little deeper.
Yes, and what the different types mean. There are 9 types, and all together they make up the perfect person. And so the idea is that we all have different segments of this perfect person, and we all have these different strengths and also deficits. And so that is what all the types mean. And in addition, a lot of types typically end up in certain jobs based on those strengths and weaknesses. And so if you have no idea what you want to do next year and no idea what you want to do with your life, this could just be a really good resource to say, okay, I'm really great at being empathetic. What have other empathetic people typically done and been successful in? And so this is just a really good thing to know about yourself and just grow a knowledge of yourself and how you function, but also is very applicable to thinking about the future. So type 3 is the achiever. They are success-oriented and pragmatic. Type 4 is the individualist. They are sensitive and introspective. Type 5 is the investigator. They are intense, the cerebral type. Somewhat isolated but very smart, always taking in information. Type 6 is the loyalist. They are committed and security-oriented. They're engaging and responsible. Type 7 is the enthusiast, the busy, variety-seeking type. They are spontaneous and versatile. Type 8 is the challenger, the most powerful, dominating type. They are self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. And then type 9 is the peacemaker, the easygoing, self-effacing type. So they are receptive, reassuring, agreeable. So we'll continue to talk about all of those as you have figured out what you are. And if you have questions, we have all this information and would love to provide resources to you and just help you grow and what certain things mean and how you can grow, how you need to flex, what your improvement areas are, as well as what you're already really good at. So
with this, we're going to pass around our information that we have, and we have 2 questions under your itinerary, which you can find in your wonderful workshop itinerary notebook. And the 2 questions are, after looking through what your results say, what is your biggest fear and your biggest motivator? So we provided some paper in the back of your journal to kind of work through some of those questions. Feel free to get with other people who might also have the same Enneagram type as you, just kind of chat about ways that you may see the world the same. And then the other one is kind of looking more towards our interview section, which will happen tomorrow. Do any of the jobs listed in the packet that we give you reflect something that you think you could thrive in, or things that you kind of see yourself associating with? So that's kind of what we're doing right now for the next few minutes.
And then also, so we've mentioned this will kind of illuminate some of your strengths and some of your improvement areas. And so we also would love for you to turn to that same partner and talk through what is something that you feel confident doing? What is a quality that you have that makes you good at that thing? And then what is something that you have to do that makes you really nervous? And what about that activity is most intimidating? So interviewers will frequently ask you, what is your biggest strength and what is your biggest weakness? And so one, it's just great to be aware of that and aware of how you can constantly grow and learn from other people. But it's also just important to get comfortable articulating this to an interviewer because it's going to show that you're self-aware and show that you know how you can function in their organization or in their scholarship program or whatever it is you're interviewing for. So we just want you to get comfortable sorting through what you're good at and what you can grow in. So yeah.
So spend some time doing that, just working through your strengths and your weaknesses. And feel free to refer back to these in your itinerary that we've handed you. And we'll be up at the front answering any questions that you may need. And that's kind of our time for the rest of the day. And then we'll talk about our homework in a little bit. All right, so hopefully you've had some time this afternoon, or this morning, it's really early in the morning, not this afternoon, to work through your strengths and your weaknesses. As we head into tomorrow, we're really hoping that we can kind of build upon the things we learned about ourselves today, the things that you are coming across as self-aware, and just learning more about who you are and then how you can apply that to an interview based on some really simple but important do's and don'ts, which we'll head into tomorrow. But for your homework tonight, we're going to take another personality test, which kind of takes what you learned in the Enneagram and your strengths and weaknesses and applies them to actual job skills, which Dr. Parker, we're still working on finding that test, if you'll help us with that. But that's kind of our plan for homework tonight, is that you'll take another test, which just is simple, not hard. We don't need to add to your actual homework and your already busy lifestyles of being athletes. But that'll kind of be what we head into tomorrow with actual interview skills, etc. So enjoy your day. Thanks for coming. Hope that you learned a little bit about yourself. And yeah.
Day 2.
Yes. Okay. So, hi. Welcome again. Just to remind you, I'm Sarah Margaret. This is Lucy Kate. I almost called myself Sarah Kate. That's not my name.
Margaret.
Anyways, but we hope you had some time to reflect on yesterday. We talked about a lot about ourselves, which is never easy. It's always kind of uncomfortable to talk about the things that you're good at and things that you're bad at, but it's all important so that you know your areas of growth and you know where to focus on when you're applying these to interview skills, etc. We all have things that we have to work on, and that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing that we can be working on these and grow in them. So today, just to kind of start things off, a little humor, and then we'll delve into some more serious interview things. I'm going to show you 2 examples of what not to do in an interview, and then I'll show you an example of a good thing, which unfortunately the good one's not quite as much fun as watching the bad ones, because the bad ones are pretty funny. But anyway, so we'll start off with that for the morning.
Amy, it says you are trained in technology. That's very good. Are you adept at it?
No,
Oh, well,
You may get the volume up.
oh, okay.
not really.
Oh, it's actually, is it on the wall?
Exactly in what area
Is
of
that volume?
technology are you proficient?
Up, down, stop.
Snapchat, Pinterest, Instagram, Vine, Twitter, you know the big one.
I'm surprised you didn't say Facebook.
Is it getting loud?
That's for old people, like my parents. That's funny.
Well, Amy, when you're working for me, you have to have those kind of research skills, because I'll send you things for you to comb through and get the answers and send them to me. So for that, you've got to be really good at technology.
For stuff like that, no problem. I'll just ask Siri.
You'll just ask Siri.
You know, Siri tell me this, Siri find me that. We're all good getting you the answers.
Tell Siri I want you ready to go at 8 sharp each and every morning.
I don't understand
What don't you understand?
what you just said.
You don't understand be ready to go?
No. You said 8, right?
Yes.
8, like, in the morning 8?
Yes, in the morning.
Yeah. That kind of doesn't work for me. Who gets up at 8?
I do.
I Skype with my French boyfriend in Paris until like 3 in the morning. I don't even get to Starbucks until like 10, where I order my grande chai tea latte, 3 pounds skim milk, light water, 2% milk, extra hot but not too hot. So if it's okay, I work best in the morning at 10:45.
Wow. Amy, I don't think we're going to be a good fit.
Why are you so negative? I can sense your hostilities, and right now I am not feeling very safe. I've been here for over 5 minutes, and the only nice thing you have said to me was nice resume, which I typed all night for this meeting with you. You've given me no guidance, no validation, no encouragement, no supervision. Is there an HR director somewhere?
HR director?
Yes, I need to speak to someone. I may have to take off today as a mental health day.
Take the day off. Amy, look at me. You don't work here.
Are you firing me?
Okay, yes.
What is that?
Oh no, disregard that.
I don't like that. Okay. So as you can see, that was just an example of what not to do in an interview, but it's also an example of kind of how society is viewing our generation of individuals heading into the workforce and into the college area. You have a lot of things working against you, which unfortunately, for good or bad, just things to be aware of and things to know not to do when heading in, which unfortunately, like, the reason that was made is because that's something that has happened before, or something that is expected of our generation, which we want to prove them wrong, obviously, because you saw that's not a good example of how to handle yourself in an interview.
And I think also just realizing, like, whoever you're interviewing with, you're on their turf. And so having your best understanding of them as you can, and not just coming in, presenting yourself, but also being engaged with, who they are. They may be of a different generation, and just understanding the different barriers that may come with that and may come with communicating about that.
For sure. All right, so now we have another example of a bad interview. So.
We can see you guys. Okay, good. You got it? Hi, my name is Billy.
We can hear you fine as well.
Oh, great. Billy McMahon. Nick Campbell. I'm Benjamin.
Allison, we're going to ask you a few questions that some of our candidates find a little bit odd.
Let's go. No judgment. Shoot. You're shrunken down to the size of nickels and drop to the bottom of the blender. What do? You take your flat on your back like this. You lay back and go down the breathing. Pretend it's a fan. Once this blender's on, it's on forever.
Respectfully, I gotta disagree. We sold blenders, and even the best model in the world is only gonna run maybe 10 or 11 hours. So we're getting out, and when we do, we're better off for it, because whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
It's not so much getting out of the blender, it's what happens next. That's the question.
You've got 2 nickel-sized men free in the world.
I mean, on top of my head, I'm just
But
looking
you're
here.
swimming.
Sunglass repair?
Yeah.
How about those little screws?
Maybe stick us in those submarines that they put in people's bodies to fight diseases.
Okay, that's not a real thing, the submarine. Wait a minute, I thought we were stuck in the blender. Now we're saving lives? What? 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 Let me just recap this for you real quick. We started off in a now we're saving lives. What? Wait a minute, we were stuck in a blender, and now we're saving lives?
What has led us to this? Thank you.
Okay, so obviously, again, that is not a good example of what to do in an interview. That was a little funnier, a more funny example than the past one. Not necessarily realistic, but also pretty funny of just an example of what not to do. So, anything? Nope. Okay, so the next one is obviously not as much fun, but it's an example of what to do in an interview. Watching it is not as much fun, but when you're in the interview, it is quite fun because you talk about yourself when you're doing things that make you passionate. This is just an example of how to handle yourself in an interview, the ways to speak to an interviewer, how to keep your questions concise. A little later on in the day, in the morning, we're going to do a mock interview, so that's something that it's really important to watch this, listen to this, take note of this, because you're going to be doing it with your partner in a little bit. So,
And just one important note, as you're growing in public speaking and speaking in an interview setting, something that really is helpful is watching videos of other speakers and picking up, okay, what makes them look confident? How are they successful? How can I adapt that quality to make myself more comfortable when I'm talking about this? And so this is really, although it may seem less fun, it's really a good thing because the more you watch it, the more you're able to mirror being a confident interviewee. All right.
resource assistance position.
Very good. Where did you see this job posted?
I actually saw it in the Working Texas database. I matched up to it in my profile.
Great. That's very exciting. Well, thank you for being here today. Tell me a little bit about your human resource background.
Well, I spent the last 21 years in the United States Air Force as a human resource assistant, and I actually recruited and interviewed individuals to come into the United States Air Force.
Very good. Well, let me ask you a question. When you're interviewing someone for a job, what qualities are you looking for?
I'm actually looking for qualities more so that deal with teamwork, ability to attention to detail, and see if they can work by themselves at times. You know, at all times they won't be able to, but the ability to take self-initiative and to work alone.
Okay. If you would, tell me how many times you think in, say, a 6-month period it's okay to be late to work.
6-month period. Now, coming from the United States Air Force, we know there are times. Being late, we give it 3 strikes.
3 times in 6 months.
3 times in a 6-month period. And normally you have processes and procedures that you would follow up with those lateness. For instance, if you're going to be late, we've already told you ahead of time what you need to do to ensure that your supervisor, whoever's in charge, knows why you're getting late.
Good. Okay. What would your previous coworkers say about you? If you were to talk to your last job and say, tell us about Tamara, what would they say is your greatest quality?
Easy to get along, bubbly attitude, means business, wants to get the job done.
Okay. What would they say is the thing that Tamara needs to do a little better? We all have those things we can improve upon. What's the thing that you're working on?
Coming off, or not coming off so harsh with an individual, things like if you make a mistake, you know, why did you make the mistake, and try to find out the root problem of it and then teach them better on so they can forgive.
Okay. What do you think it takes to be a good employee?
A good employee, showing up to work on time, being there as a team member, knowing your job. Knowing your job. If you don't know the job, ask questions. Don't sit there like a monologue and not answer questions. And I truly believe in taking self-initiative and to bring something to the table.
Okay. Well, Tamara, do you have any questions of me?
Well, one question I do have for you, and I was just reading some information last week, is how many people, how often have you had to fill this position as human resource assistant?
This position has had one person in it for the last 4 years. And she actually has a husband who's relocating out of the area, and so she wants to follow him, and that's what's created this position that we're interviewing you for today.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
No.
Well, Tamara, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate it. What I'm going to do is give you my card, okay?
Okay, so we hope y'all enjoyed that video. Hope you saw what professional, calm, confident communication looks like.
Yes, part of that, part of that video that I think is good to point out is watching her ability to pause and think about her answers. I know sometimes that was awkward, like watching that happen, but that's something that we would really encourage, because actually sitting down and thinking about, like, not just answering whatever comes to your mind, because a lot of times that results in rambling and things that aren't the best in the interviews. So really just thinking about what the interviewer just asked you and coming up with a concise, to the point answer while answering the question to the best of your ability. I think that was something that she did really well in the interview.
And another thing that she did really well was good eye contact.
Mm-hmm.
It appears nervous if you're not making eye contact or looking at the ceiling or looking around. And so the more engaged you can make people feel like you are, it's going to show that you care about this interview, and it's going to show that you care about what you're talking about and that you care about the person who is interviewing you.
Absolutely. All right, so we're going to run through a few just do's and don'ts real quick. You have the handout in your great itinerary folder. So just a few things that we think it's really important to point out when thinking about this. You can flip to the second to last page. They have do's and don'ts. The rest are just some common mistakes, questions for preparation for the interview, how to not be nervous, what employees may be looking for or employers may be looking for. But some do's and don'ts are to definitely spend some time thinking about the interview before you start the interview. You don't want to show up not being prepared, because that comes off as honestly like just not caring or not showing enough effort into the job that you're doing. You definitely want to spend the most time coming up with a good application, good examples about some questions, which we're going to work through in a little bit. Definitely be focused. That's something that Tamara did really well in this interview, of just making sure that she was always on topic, always to the point with her questions, or with her answers that she was questioning. Make sure that you wear business professional attire. I know for you guys that may be something like, duh, of course you wear business professional attire, but honestly that's something that a lot of people sometimes forget about. But at the same time, make sure you're comfortable. Don't show up showing in an outfit that you know you can't walk in your heels, or you can't move your arms in your jacket, because you want to make sure that you're comfortable so that you perform to the best of your ability.
And with that, a friend who I have, she always says that she takes as much time as she needs to get ready in the morning so that she does not think about her appearance again for the rest of the day. So if you have shoes that are uncomfortable, like don't do anything that could distract you from the purpose of that day and from what you're doing. And so just take the time to do your homework and get ready, just so that you're not having to think about your appearance, being uncomfortable, etc.
A few other things to run through, some do's, are definitely keep your answer simple and clear. That's something I can't say enough. As I was going through, I went through a similar process with the mock interview last year, and that's something that my interviewer kept telling me is, you have great answers, but you just ramble on too long, which, as you probably know from the past 2 days, that I like to talk a lot. But that's something that is really important, because if you ramble too long, sometimes your answer gets lost in your rambling, and the interviewer doesn't really quite know what your answer was to the question that they ask you. So that's something to definitely practice. We're in the next few minutes when we do our mock interview. Do let yourself go. That sounds kind of silly, because you think, why would I do that? It's an interview. But the interviewer wants to know who you really are. They don't want to know a fake person, because when you're there, you're going to be who you are in this work environment. So make sure the interviewer knows who you really are.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Really quick? They also will already have a copy of your resume, and so they will know a lot of your achievements already. They'll know, and they'll probably ask you about them. But in communication studies, there's something we call hard skills and soft skills. And hard skills are technical, like I'm good at using Microsoft Word, and that is a skill that I have. But soft skills are actually really, really important, and that means, are you personable? Do you work well with others? How are you going to fit into this team and benefit this team socially? And so that's just an important thing to keep in mind. It's like your resume is your chance to show your hard skills, and then this interview is a chance to show your soft skills.
For sure. So kind of going into some don'ts after that is, don't ever answer a question with just yes or no. Make sure you always expand on the question they're asking you. That plays into your soft skills, because your ability to do something could easily be answered in a yes or no question, but the interviewer really wants to get to know who you are more. Don't fidget. Try to sit as calmly as you can. That's something that's really easy to do without you even knowing that you're doing it. A lot of times I play with my hair, or I'm tapping my foot, or doing something that is really distracting for the interviewer, but you have no idea that you're doing it. So in the next few minutes when we do our mock interview, have your interviewer point that out if they see that you're doing that while you're answering that. Feel comfortable to do that with the other person, because this will help you grow in those skills.
Yeah, that's especially prevalent with, I have rings, and I sit here and I twirl my rings. People really often play with their watch, and so, or look at their watch if they're nervous, and that would be terrible, because it seems like you're ready to go, you're not content being there, and so I would suggest not even wearing a watch to an interview.
Yes,
it's an important
for
extra
sure. A few other things: don't talk too fast. I'm very guilty of that. I talk really fast. It's easy when you're excited about something. We get it. But make sure that goes back to just thinking through your answers, making sure you know what you're answering and why you're answering it. A few other obvious things: don't use jargon. Don't try to make inappropriate jokes. Don't just make sure that you're being professional and being a true representation of who you are. That's something my mom always tells me as I'm leaving the house, is remember who you are, which is funny, and it's become a joke in my family, but it's something really important to remember in an interview, is making sure you're representing a true representation of the person you want the interviewer to see.
So now we're going to dive into our mock interviews, which is really exciting. So you're going to work with a partner, and Sarah and I are going to do a couple of just example questions for you to just have an example, and then we have a list of questions included for you in your itinerary.
We're going to provide little baggies of questions for each of you, so you can pull them out of the bag and ask each other. These are just some examples on here. We also have a list. It was too long to put it out for each of you, but we have a list of sample answers to every single question that you're getting. So if you get stuck, ask us, and we can come and bring you an example of kind of how to think through that question, how to answer it.
And also,
helpful.
in general, if someone asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, just have a thoughtful response of, I really need some time to think about that, but I would love to follow up with you at another time and elaborate on this more once I've thought about it, done my homework, etc.
Being honest is very key.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Which one did I say? What achievement?
Hello, my name is Lucy Kicker.
Hi, Sarah Margaret Spivey.
Nice
So
to
nice to
meet
meet
you.
you. Thank you for having me here today.
So, Sarah, I would just love to know what achievement in your life are you most proud of?
It's a great question. I'm so glad you asked me. I think thinking through my college experience, one of the most exciting aspects and things that I'm most proud of is the Sanford Ambassadors Program. This program allows me to work with donors and alumni within the university. It gives me an example to be professional, to act in a professional way, and be around some really important people and to practice those skills. I think that's something that's really contributed to my ability today, and it prepared me for this job, and something that I'm really proud of and achieving throughout my college experience. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, Sarah's going to ask me questions.
Yes.
Well.
Okay. I'm going to ask you strengths and weaknesses, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, Lucy.
Hello.
So nice to have you here
Thank
today.
you for having me and
Of
taking the
course.
time to meet with me.
Of course. I'd like to know, what do you think is your number one strength and why?
I would say that my number one strength is just being understanding with people and being empathetic. There aren't many feelings that people have that I can't relate to, and I really seek to understand anyone in the midst of disagreement or just in the midst of working on a project together. I'd say that's my biggest strength. And then my biggest weakness, oh wait, I just had it. Oh, okay, my biggest weakness, don't do that, is that I think that I have a hard time often being big picture because I'm empathetic and because I do lead with my feelings a lot of the time. It's really easy for me to get frustrated and stuck in the muck about something rather than seeing the whole picture and all of the details and just how small that situation might be in a grand scheme of things. So.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, guys, so we're going to give you a few minutes to pair off with your partner, maybe someone you've worked with in the interview yesterday or in the workshop yesterday or today, and spend some time doing that. And we're up here if you have any questions, and we have the packet of information if you need it, so let us know. Okay? Okay, you finished your mock interview. Hopefully it went well and you're able to really see yourself thinking through some interviews and use all the things that you've learned over the past few days about yourself and applying it to the questions that your partner was asking you and vice versa.
And also in the real workshop, we will ask them, how did it go? Ask them, what was your favorite part, least favorite part, etc.
Yes. And then kind of thinking towards the future, we're unfortunately wrapping up our workshop, and so it's time to not only know your skills, but think about how you can start applying them to the future. So take some time, if you want to work with a partner or want to just take some time to reflect upon this yourself and journal a few answers to these. What are some ways that you can apply the things you learned into a future job? What would that dream job be? What is something that you see your future headed towards? What stands in the way between you and that job or that future career or dream or whatever? Is something you learned about yourself the past 2 days? How could you work on that? Those sort of things. And then just a few steps of how you can improve those skills to start thinking towards the future. Hopefully you've learned some ways to think through that the past 2 days.
And so maybe if we have some time left at the end, we could all just go and say, like, what is our next step? Like, what is our tangible next step? Maybe that's, looking at requirements for a certain school, or, maybe that's becoming a better
a lot of you have already
speaker.
applied to schools. I know my sister is a senior in high school, and she just sent in her application, so even if that's starting to look at scholarships or things like that, those are the next steps, and I totally get that.
We also have been through so much of this, and so if you're like, I know I want to do this, but I just don't know how, talk to us, and we'd love to try to help you formulate a little bit of a plan, get you the right resources connected.
Absolutely. So hopefully you have learned just some ways to think about interviews, feel more confident in your interview skills. We're going to pass out a survey now for you to kind of think through how you thought the workshop went. Please feel free. I know on the flyer that Coach Chestnut handed you guys that it has our contact information. Never hesitate to reach out. We only want to come in here and make sure that we're investing in you guys, investing in interview skills, but we want to be a resource for you as you head through this next chapter. I know for us, we're about to start interviewing for jobs, so we're right there with you guys. We both graduate in May, so come the spring, we're going to start interviewing, and we're going to be in the same boat as you all, so don't think that we're totally removed from this, because we get it, and we want to help you guys through this time as well.
And if any of you just absolutely loved this workshop, maybe you should be a communications major. Feel free to come and talk to us about that. If this was something that you just absolutely, loved, and then if you didn't love it, we can talk to you about a different major.
Absolutely. Well, anyways, it's been so great getting to know you guys. Please feel free to come up, ask us about any of the resources that we had the past few days. It's been great getting to know you.
Woo! Bye. We're done. Oh, come on.